What if I told you that the financial breakthrough you've been desperately seeking, the abundance that feels just beyond your grasp, the money that never seems to flow no matter how hard you work, could shift completely in the next 24 hours with nothing more than one specific phrase that Florence Scovel Shinn discovered decades ago? But before we dive deep, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. I love seeing our global community of conscious creators coming together. Right now, as you're listening to this, millions of people are trapped in what I call the financial prison of their own making. They're working longer hours, cutting expenses to the bone, desperately searching for new income streams, and following every money manifestation technique they can find online. Yet somehow, despite all their hustle, despite all their positive thinking about wealth, despite all their vision boards, filled with luxury cars and dream homes, they remain stuck in the same cycles of financial stress, living paycheck to paycheck, experiencing the same money struggles year after year. Does this sound familiar? Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly attract financial opportunities, while others struggle endlessly despite their best efforts? Here's what most people completely misunderstand about the true mechanics of money manifestation. You don't need another side hustle. You don't need to wait for the economy to improve, for your boss to give you a raise, or for some perfect business opportunity to fall into your lap. You don't need more education, better connections, or another complicated investment strategy. What you need, what you have always needed, is something so elegantly simple yet so overlooked that it might shock you. You need one living phrase. Not just any words, but a specific arrangement of sounds, so precisely calibrated to the frequency of abundance, that it can slice through years of financial limitation in a single breath. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this profound truth about money consciousness, and what you're about to discover will revolutionize how you think about creating wealth. Most people approach money manifestation like they're negotiating with a cosmic bank loan officer. They explain their financial struggles, justify why they need more money, try to convince the universe that they're worthy of abundance, hoping that somehow their good intentions will be rewarded with financial relief. But here's the revolutionary truth that changes everything about money creation. The phrase that transforms your financial reality doesn't negotiate, doesn't explain your circumstances, and certainly doesn't beg for mercy. It commands abundance into manifestation. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share operates on a completely different frequency than anything you've been taught about attracting money. This transformative phrase has the power to rewire your entire relationship with abundance and call forth the financial demonstration that's been waiting for you in the invisible realm of infinite supply. You see, there's a fundamental difference between hoping for money and commanding it, between wishing for financial improvement and decreeing prosperity, between asking the universe to consider your financial needs and speaking with the authority that actually activates the law of supply. The ancient prosperity teachings knew this secret, and now quantum physics is beginning to understand what mystics have always known. That consciousness, when properly directed through focused intention and spoken word, doesn't just observe financial reality, it creates it. If you're resonating with this practical approach to wealth creation, consider subscribing, because every video here gives you real tools for financial transformation, not just inspiration. But here's where most people stumble in their money manifestation efforts, and why their attempts at attracting abundance fall short despite their sincere intentions. They're operating under the illusion that financial transformation follows the same rules as earning money through traditional work. They believe wealth building must be gradual, that significant financial improvement requires years of consistent saving and investing, that major money breakthroughs demand extensive preparation and perfect timing. This mindset has been programmed into us by a culture that worships financial struggle and glorifies the slow grind toward prosperity. Yet this couldn't be further from the truth about how abundance actually flows according to spiritual law. When you understand the real mechanics behind money manifestation, you discover that financial transformation isn't measured by market conditions, economic forecasts, or conventional business timelines. It's measured by the precision and authority of your spoken word about abundance. The moment you declare financial prosperity with clean conviction, not hope, not wishful thinking, but absolute knowing about your divine right to abundance, and simultaneously release those limiting beliefs about money that have been running your financial life on autopilot, something profound happens in the invisible realm of supply. Universal law moves, consciousness shifts, and financial demonstration begins immediately. This isn't some mystical concept that sounds beautiful in theory, but fails when bills are due. This is the fundamental operating system of abundance itself. Every financial breakthrough you've ever experienced, every unexpected check that arrived just when you needed it, every opportunity that seemed to come from nowhere, these weren't random luck or cosmic accidents. They were the result of this same principle activating, whether you were conscious of it or not. What's truly revolutionary about this understanding is that money begins moving toward you the very second your word goes out into the universe with genuine authority. Not after you've proven yourself financially responsible, not after you've completed some cosmic checklist of worthiness, but immediately upon proper declaration of your abundant nature. Think about the most significant financial decisions that have shaped your life. Weren't many of them made in single moments of clarity, where you simply knew what needed to happen and spoke it into existence? That wasn't coincidence. That was you unconsciously tapping into this same transformative principle that governs all abundance. The impact of understanding this shifts everything about how you approach money challenges. Instead of approaching financial desires from a place of lack, constantly trying to fill some void or solve some money problem, you begin to operate from the recognition that abundance is already complete in the spiritual dimension. Your role isn't to create prosperity from nothing, but to step into the wealth that's already been prepared for you, behind the scenes of ordinary financial reality. Now I want to go even deeper, because there's a specific phrase, one particular arrangement of words that Florence Scovel Shinn discovered could activate financial law with unprecedented precision and speed. But before we explore that wealth creating revelation, I'm right in the comments. I'm ready for financial transformation, so I know you're truly grasping the magnitude of what we're uncovering together. This transformative revelation becomes even more profound when you examine how abundance itself was established in creation. We're taught to think of prosperity as some complex economic system involving elaborate planning, market analysis, and intricate financial strategies. Yet when you look at the spiritual foundation of abundance, something remarkable emerges that completely reshapes your understanding of how money responds to consciousness. Universal abundance wasn't created through a divine business plan. There was no cosmic feasibility study, no celestial committee meeting to determine whether prosperity should exist. Abundance was established through divine decree. Let there be provision for every need. And there was unlimited supply available instantly. One breath of creative authority arranged the entire foundation of prosperity on the spot. This isn't just ancient wisdom or religious metaphor. This is the blueprint for how consciousness interfaces with the infinite field of financial possibilities. That same creative power, that same immediate response to properly spoken command about abundance, exists within you right now. The very breath in your lungs carries this same potential for instant financial transformation. Yet here's what's fascinating about human behavior around money. You were never designed to struggle financially, endlessly searching for the right opportunity, the perfect moment, or the ideal circumstances to step into prosperity. You were never meant to drift through financial uncertainty, hoping that favorable economic conditions might eventually carry you to abundance. You were specifically created to speak financial reality into alignment with divine supply. But instead of embracing this incredible authority over money consciousness, most people exhaust themselves with every other possible approach. They analyze market trends obsessively, documenting every financial strategy and investment option from every conceivable angle. They wait for external financial validation, looking for signs that the economy approves of their prosperity desires. They worry themselves into financial paralysis, creating elaborate mental scenarios about everything that could possibly go wrong with their money situation. They overwork themselves to financial burnout, believing that sheer effort alone will eventually force their financial breakthrough. They overthink every money decision until the original inspiration for abundance gets buried under layers of financial doubt and analysis. Behind all this frantic financial activity, there's one thing they consistently avoid doing. The one thing that would actually create the money transformation they desperately seek. They haven't yet spoken the specific phrase that breaks financial delay. The precise words that cut through years of money struggle and activate the hidden mechanisms of instant abundance manifestation. This isn't about positive affirmations about money or repeating generic prosperity phrases you found online. This goes deeper into the very foundation of how consciousness creates financial reality through focused intention and spoken authority about abundance. The impact of understanding this principle shifts your entire approach to money, from working harder to speaking clearer about prosperity. The specific phrase that Florence Scovel Shinn identified as having extraordinary power over financial demonstration contains 3 distinct elements that work together to create what she called divine acceleration in money manifestation. When you combine these elements correctly, something remarkable happens to your financial timeline. I'm right in the comments. I'm ready to command abundance. And let's explore exactly how this phrase restructures financial reality itself. But there's a crucial understanding that must come first, because without grasping this fundamental principle about money consciousness, even the most powerful prosperity words remain dormant and ineffective. Here's the hidden truth that most people completely miss in their journey toward financial transformation. Until you actually speak your money intentions aloud with genuine authority, nothing new can move in your financial reality. Think about that for a moment. All those wealth dreams you've been nurturing silently, all those abundance visions you've been visualizing privately, all those financial goals you've been thinking about constantly, they remain trapped in potential until they're given voice through authoritative declaration about your prosperous nature. The universe operates on a very specific frequency when it comes to money manifestation, and that frequency is activated through spoken word about abundance, not silent financial worry. But once you do speak with genuine authority about prosperity, everything in your financial world must shift. This isn't happening in some abstract dimension. This is actual substance responding to money consciousness. When you declare financial truth boldly, when you speak abundance commands without the trembling uncertainty that usually accompanies our money requests, the very fabric of your financial experience begins restructuring itself to match the prosperity reality you've just spoken into existence. This is where most people's money mindset completely misses the mark. They approach financial desires like they're making suggestions to a cosmic financial advisor, hoping their prosperity ideas might be considered worthy of attention. But the universe doesn't respond to financial suggestions or polite requests for more money. It responds to abundance declarations made with unshakable knowing, to prosperity commands spoken from the place of absolute certainty about your divine right to wealth. What I'm about to share with you isn't motivational speaking about money or positive psychology about wealth. This isn't some feel-good financial suggestion that might work if you're lucky and the market cooperates. This operates as spiritual law regarding abundance, as precise and reliable as gravity or electricity when it comes to money manifestation. Once this law becomes active, through your properly spoken word about prosperity, your entire financial life reorders itself within 24 hours according to these same spiritual principles that govern all money demonstration. The impact of this revelation completely transforms how you approach any financial decision or money challenge in your life. Instead of spending weeks analyzing investment options or months trying to figure out the perfect business strategy, you begin to understand that the financial breakthrough you've been seeking is literally one phrase away from activation. The journey from financial struggle to abundance isn't measured in time or effort. It's measured in the precision and authority of your spoken declaration about prosperity. But here's what makes this so incredibly powerful, and why Florence Scovel Shinn's specific phrase works with such consistent precision in money matters. When you speak this particular combination of words, with genuine understanding of what you're activating financially, you're not just hoping for money improvement or requesting financial relief. You're actually invoking three distinct abundance laws simultaneously, creating what she discovered was unstoppable momentum toward money manifestation. Write in the comments, "I understand money law," because recognizing this principle is the first step toward wielding it effectively in your own financial transformation. When you recognize this principle, you begin to see something quite disturbing about how most people actually navigate their financial existence. They don't truly live abundantly in the fullest sense. Instead, they live in financial loops, spirals of money worry, that keep them circling the same limited financial experiences year after year. They create circles of lack where the same money struggles, debt patterns, and income frustrations repeat with clockwork precision. What's particularly heartbreaking is watching someone brush against the very edge of their financial breakthrough, feeling that electric moment when money transformation seems within reach, only to watch them fall back into familiar territory of financial fear and scarcity thinking. This happens repeatedly, not because these individuals are somehow financially unworthy or fundamentally flawed around money, but because no one ever taught them the art of decreeing financial reality into existence. The impact of this missing knowledge creates a tragedy that plays out in millions of financial lives every single day. Behind every unfulfilled money dream, every financial goal that remains perpetually someday, every abundance vision that stays locked in wishful thinking, there's this same fundamental gap. People have learned to hope for money, to visualize wealth, to set financial intentions, but they've never learned to speak with the authority that actually activates abundance law. This creates a particularly painful kind of financial stagnation. Many souls remain money, stuck for years, sometimes decades, and the enemy isn't some external economic force working against them. The real obstacle is their financial silence. They carry enormous prosperity potential. You can see it in their business ideas, feel it in their entrepreneurial energy. They have brilliant money concepts that could transform their finances and impact countless others. Their hearts are pure around abundance, their intentions about prosperity genuine, their financial desires completely aligned with their highest good. Yet, despite all these positive qualities, despite all this untapped money potential, they remain frozen in financial limitation because they lack one crucial element: a prosperity decree in their mouth. They have no single spiritual phrase that abundance law can move through to create the financial transformation they desperately seek. Without this spoken instruction about prosperity, all that beautiful financial potential remains dormant, like a powerful money-making engine that's never been started. The hidden truth about how consciousness creates financial reality is that the universe operates on very specific protocols. When it comes to money manifestation, it responds to clear, authoritative communication about abundance, not to silent financial wishes or unexpressed prosperity longings. Your thoughts about money have power, but they remain in the realm of financial possibility until they're given voice through conscious, deliberate speech about abundance. This is why people can spend years journaling about wealth, meditating on prosperity, and visualizing financial success without seeing significant changes in their bank account circumstances. They're working with the preparatory stages of money manifestation, but they're never activating the final step that actually brings abundance law into motion. The journey from financial vision to money reality requires this bridge of spoken word about prosperity, delivered with unshakable conviction about your abundant nature. Now, when Florence Scovel Shinn developed her revolutionary approach to money manifestation, she discovered that there was one particular phrase that could break through financial limitation patterns and activate all three abundance laws simultaneously. But understanding how to speak this phrase correctly requires recognizing the precise mindset that makes it effective around money creation. Here's what creates such profound confusion in people's journey toward financial transformation. They expect the universe to somehow read their financial minds and automatically deliver the money they need. They believe that if their prosperity desires are pure enough, if their abundance intentions are good enough, if their financial need is urgent enough, then divine supply will override their money silence and impose the wealth changes they're seeking. But this reveals a complete misunderstanding of how consciousness actually interfaces with financial reality. Spirit will never override your financial silence. This isn't because divine abundance lacks power or compassion around money matters, but because prosperity law itself operates with perfect respect for your free will and conscious choice about wealth. The abundance law won't impose financial order where your voice hasn't invited it. Think about this carefully regarding money manifestation. The very force that governs all financial demonstration, that can rearrange money's circumstances with effortless precision, is actually waiting on you when it comes to prosperity creation. It's waiting on your tone about abundance, your rhythm around wealth, your specific words about money, to give it permission to act on your financial behalf. Abundance law is absolutely perfect in its responsiveness to money consciousness. But it's not pushy about financial matters. It doesn't force prosperity solutions onto people who haven't consciously requested abundance. It doesn't override the natural flow of someone's financial experience, just because an outside observer thinks they need more money. Behind the scenes of every financial transformation, there's always been a moment of conscious invitation about abundance, a specific decision to speak money reality into a new configuration. This explains why some people seem to effortlessly attract financial opportunities, while others struggle for years with the same money challenges. It's not about financial worthiness, money luck, or cosmic favoritism around wealth. It's about understanding that, until you actively speak your prosperity intentions into existence, your financial life will naturally default to whatever money vibration is currently active in your unconscious abundance patterns. Without conscious direction through spoken word about prosperity, your money experience defaults to old fear-based financial programming that was installed years ago. It defaults to cultural conditioning about money that tells you what's financially possible based on your background, education, or economic circumstances. It defaults to inherited money patterns from family systems that may have nothing to do with your actual abundance potential. And here's the crucial insight about financial transformation. This happens not because any of these money limitations represent truth about who you are or what you're capable of achieving financially. These financial defaults remain active simply because they are the only prosperity instructions currently running in your subconscious money system. In the absence of conscious direction about abundance, your financial life naturally gravitates toward whatever money programming has been most consistently reinforced through repetition and emotional intensity around wealth and scarcity. The impact of this understanding completely shifts how you approach any area where you want to create money change. Instead of trying to fight against unwanted financial patterns or struggling circumstances, instead of exhausting yourself with endless money strategies and wealth techniques, you begin to recognize that financial transformation happens through conscious redirection of the creative force that's always been available to you for abundance creation. The specific phrase that Florence Scovel Shinn identified works because it provides this precise redirection in a way that activates immediate response from abundance law. Write in the comments, "I choose conscious money direction," because this decision marks the exact moment when your financial transformation journey shifts from hoping for money to commanding abundance. But there's an even deeper revelation about your fundamental design around abundance that most people have completely forgotten. When you truly understand how you were created to function financially, everything about money manifestation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Picture a magnificent financial system equipped with unlimited resources, perfect distribution networks, and everything needed for any level of prosperity imaginable. Yet despite all this incredible abundance potential, the wealth remains inaccessible, with people drifting in financial limitation wherever scarcity currents take them. Not because the abundance system is broken or inadequate, but because no one has input the prosperity coordinates. No one has given clear direction about where the money should flow. This is exactly how most people navigate their financial lives, and it represents a fundamental misunderstanding of your original abundance design. You weren't built to drift through financial uncertainty, hoping that favorable economic winds might eventually carry you toward prosperity. You weren't created to guess about your money path, wondering if you're making the right financial decisions or moving toward abundance. You were specifically designed to direct financial flow, to govern your money experience through conscious choice and deliberate instruction about prosperity. But here's where the hidden truth about abundance becomes truly transformative. To govern financial reality effectively, you must speak aloud about prosperity, not just think about money abundance, not just visualize wealth, but actually speak your financial intentions into the quantum field through consistent, rhythmic declaration about prosperity. Behind the scenes of every major financial breakthrough, there's always been this element of spoken direction, guiding the money manifestation process. The impact of recognizing this completely reverses the victim mentality that keeps so many people trapped in financial limitation. Instead of feeling like you're at the mercy of economic circumstances, market conditions, other people's financial decisions, or cosmic timing around money, you begin to understand something that fundamentally shifts your entire approach to abundance creation. You're not sitting around waiting for heaven to decide whether you're financially worthy of prosperity. You're not hoping that the universe will eventually get around to answering your money prayers. Heaven is actually waiting on you when it comes to financial demonstration. The very realm that contains every money solution, every abundance opportunity, every prosperity resource you could possibly need for complete financial fulfillment is standing by, ready to deliver wealth. But it cannot move money toward you until you provide clear direction about abundance. Until you declare where you want your financial life to go. Your money timeline remains tangled in confusion and conflicting signals about prosperity. Heaven cannot deliver the abundance that's already been prepared for you, because you haven't given it permission through spoken instruction about your financial reality. This revelation transforms every money decision you make and every abundance challenge you face. Instead of approaching financial difficulties as evidence that prosperity isn't meant for you, you begin to see them as opportunities to practice your governing authority over money consciousness. The journey toward abundance isn't about convincing the universe that you deserve financial good things. It's about remembering how to use the money, creating power you've always possessed. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to govern my abundance," because claiming this financial authority is essential before you can wield the transformative power of her revolutionary money phrase. Now, the exact phrase that Florence Scovel Shinn discovered encapsulates all of these abundance principles in one powerful financial declaration. And when spoken with proper understanding of what you're actually activating in money consciousness, it creates what she called divine acceleration in your prosperity manifestation timeline. But before revealing this transformative phrase, there's a crucial mindset shift that must happen around financial worthiness and abundance deservingness. Because most people approach money manifestation carrying enormous baggage from their past financial decisions and perceived money failures. Here's what keeps so many people trapped in financial limitation. Even when they understand these spiritual principles about abundance, they believe their money history disqualifies them from accessing higher levels of prosperity. They think that because they've made financial mistakes, because they've been off course with money for months or years, because they've tried and failed at wealth building before, somehow abundance law won't work as effectively for them financially. They carry this heavy burden of proving themselves financially worthy before they dare to speak with real authority about prosperity. But here's the hidden truth that changes everything about how you approach money transformation. Every financial setback, every money detour, every moment you thought you lost too much time around abundance was never bigger than prosperity law itself. The spiritual principles that govern financial manifestation don't operate according to human judgments about money worthiness or past financial performance. Abundance law doesn't care how far off course you've drifted from your original prosperity vision. It doesn't calculate how long you've been circling the same limiting money patterns, or how many times you've started and stopped on your wealth journey. Prosperity law only cares about one thing: that you speak the right phrase about abundance with genuine financial alignment. Behind the scenes of every miraculous money turnaround, there's the same principle at work. The moment someone stops focusing on their past financial mistakes and starts speaking their future abundance reality with clear authority, everything shifts in their money consciousness. The impact of understanding this is profound, because it means your financial transformation timeline isn't determined by your money history. It's determined by your next abundance decision. This is where most people completely misunderstand how money change actually happens. They believe financial turnaround depends on hard work around wealth, on somehow earning their way out of money limitation through effort and financial struggle. They think they need to fix everything that went wrong financially before they can access the prosperity they really want. But abundance law operates on a completely different frequency than human effort and money striving. The financial turnaround depends entirely on prosperity alignment. The second you align your inner money vibration with abundance truth, the second you stop rehearsing old financial stories and start speaking new prosperity reality, the whole direction of your money life shifts, without requiring any backstory or apology for where you've been financially. You don't need to explain to the universe why you deserve better money circumstances. You don't need to prove that you've learned enough financial lessons to qualify for your abundance breakthrough. Prosperity alignment happens in a moment of decision about money. In a single breath, where you choose to speak as the person who already has the wealth you're seeking rather than the person who's been struggling to get financial abundance. This is the precise moment when Florence Scovel Shinn's phrase becomes incredibly powerful, because it's designed to create this exact state of money alignment instantly. Write in the comments, "I'm choosing abundance alignment now," because recognizing this principle prepares you to receive the full impact of what you're about to learn about financial transformation. And there's something crucial about how abundance law responds to this money alignment that most people never realize. Prosperity law doesn't operate according to human financial timelines or conventional economic schedules. It doesn't run on clocks, calendars, or the gradual progression that we expect from traditional money building processes. Instead, abundance law runs entirely on permission about prosperity. And that financial permission is granted through your spoken word about money. The instant you say something like, "I am aligned now with divine prosperity," with genuine conviction and clear intention about abundance, the law immediately obeys regarding your financial reality. Money correction begins in that exact moment, not after a waiting period or probationary phase around wealth. This is where the power of proper declaration about abundance becomes almost unbelievable to people who've been conditioned to think that significant financial change requires extensive time and money effort. The impact of understanding this principle completely transforms your relationship with wealth transformation itself. Instead of approaching money change as a long, difficult journey, you begin to see financial transformation as an immediate response to conscious permission given through authoritative speech about abundance. Here is the phrase that has the power to completely reorder your financial reality. Infinite abundance flows to me now. I receive money from expected and unexpected sources. My prosperity is activated immediately by divine law. When you speak these words, you're not making a request about money or expressing hope about financial improvement. You're not asking permission from the universe or testing whether abundance might possibly consider your prosperity desires. You're making a definitive declaration that activates immediate response from the creative force that governs all money manifestation. But here's what's crucial about how you deliver this financial phrase. You must speak it with weight about abundance, slowly, deliberately, like your prosperity is already an accomplished fact. Not with the energy of someone trying to convince themselves of financial abundance that might be true, but with the calm certainty of someone acknowledging money, reality that is true. The impact of speaking it correctly versus speaking it casually is the difference between abundance activation and mere repetition about prosperity. Behind the scenes of this seemingly simple money phrase, there's something extraordinary happening. You're actually invoking 3 distinct prosperity laws simultaneously, creating what Florence Scovel Shinn called triple acceleration in your wealth manifestation timeline. Each part of the phrase activates a different aspect of universal abundance law. The first law that becomes active is infinite supply recognition. When you say, "Infinite abundance flows to me now," you're acknowledging that prosperity isn't limited by economic conditions, market circumstances, or conventional financial logic. You're aligning with the truth that abundance exists in unlimited supply and flows toward those who consciously receive it. The second law is multiple source activation through I receive money from expected and unexpected sources. You're opening yourself to prosperity, flowing through every possible channel, not limiting abundance to your current job, business, or financial strategies. This recognition allows money to arrive through paths you haven't even considered. The third law is immediate demonstration invoked through My prosperity is activated immediately by divine law. You're stating the truth that abundance law moves instantly once proper financial alignment is achieved. The visible money changes might take time to arrange themselves, but the prosperity demonstration begins immediately in the unseen realm of infinite supply. Write in the comments, I activate all 3 abundance laws. Because recognizing your authority to invoke these money principles is essential before you experience their combined power in your financial life. The journey from financial limitation to money freedom isn't about mastering dozens of different wealth techniques. It's about mastering this one abundance principle so completely that it becomes your natural way of interfacing with prosperity reality. When money challenges arise, instead of being overwhelmed by financial problem-solving mode, you simply return to your abundance decree and let prosperity law handle the orchestration. Your spoken word about money, delivered with proper understanding and unwavering faith in abundance, becomes the bridge between your current financial circumstances and your desired prosperity reality. Keep this approach beautifully simple, because that's where its power lies. Don't complicate abundance law with 100 different money strategies or backup financial plans. There's only one approach that truly matters in this entire prosperity process. You speak your financial reality into existence with genuine authority and conviction about abundance. This simplicity is what makes Florence Scovel Shinn's approach so revolutionary and effective around money manifestation. While others are lost in complicated wealth building techniques and elaborate financial strategies, you're working directly with the fundamental force that creates all money change through consciousness rather than effort. And if you've stayed with me through this entire exploration of abundance principles, you now possess something that most people spend years searching for: the precise understanding of how consciousness actually creates financial reality through spoken word about prosperity. This isn't information you stumbled across by accident. Your readiness to receive these money principles is evidence that your desired financial reality is already moving toward you. Consider subscribing for more content that shows you how consciousness actually shapes prosperity, rather than just inspiring you to think positively about money. Every video here gives you practical abundance tools for becoming the conscious wealth creator you were always meant to be. Hit that like button and write in the comments, my money transformation starts now. Because there's power in declaring when you're ready to step into the financial authority that has always been yours.